We're smooth 98.1 FM. Good morning and welcome to Freshly Pressed. It is time to take a look at the newspaper headlines this morning. The analysts are ready, and I know you are ready to get into the papers this morning, steamy hot on a Friday morning, as we reach out to say big good morning to Joseph Obari at the nation's capital.
Good morning, everybody. Omas, Ibi, and the rest of us everywhere in the world.
Good morning, AB Bozimo. Welcome.
Hi, good morning. Apologies in advance. The networks, as one of our stories will say, have been a challenge, but it's great to be here. Good morning to everybody.
Now, while we expect you to be part of the conversation this morning, just be sure to send us a message. That's a WhatsApp message to the platform on the phone number 0809-444-0981 will be where we like to read all of the messages relating to the news stories this morning. The table is set, so let's reach out. AB does the honors. Let's grab a copy of the Daily Trust newspaper where we find this headline where it screams, banks, telcos across Africa suffer outage as undersea cable destroyed. That's what the Daily Trust is running with, as we can see. So who's been going fishing under the sea for something that is not missing to find the undersea cable now dragged out of it?
In fact, this started at some point yesterday where inexplicably people could not access a lot of the services we're accustomed to, using. And it just really tells you how much we have all become dependent on technology. Apparently, some undersea cables were destroyed both on the east coast and the west coast of Africa, which is very strange to me. How many crabs can you possibly want that you're able to go around Africa in one day and destroy all these cables? That on a lighter note. The truth is, these are undersea cables ostensibly laid at the bottom of the ocean. I'm really surprised that they can be so subject to destruction. And let's not forget that only about 2 weeks ago, something happened along these same lines. And for an entire day, there was a problem. Two things come out of this story. One, when it happened, they started rerouting internet, across other routes in the world. So that tells you they have built-in redundancy. It's something to keep in mind. Engineers always do this. They try to make sure that there will be fail-safe measures in case of bad things. Secondary, it just lets you know all of this communication infrastructure is literally and completely out of our hands. We have little or no say in it. When it's cut, we wait. When it's improved, we benefit. The point is, they also have plans in place to quickly correct it. So, kudos to the providers. They are clearly on the ball, but I wonder what can be done to prevent this happening. And I just hope there's no element of deliberate sabotage. I want to believe, because there's no evidence to the contrary, that these are accidents. So they must look into what happened and put preventive measures in place going forward. But it's really coincidental that on both sides of the African continent, the largest continent on planet Earth, simultaneously in one day, there was destruction of undersea, not under lake, not under river, but under sea cables. Very coincidental, quite disturbing, but they say, and as we can see, it's already being taken care of. Let's hope they can figure out what went wrong. Let's also pray it's not deliberate sabotage, and let's hope we can prevent these things from happening going forward.
And when you consider the fact that this isn't more like an undersea pipeline where it would have been said, we know we'll be pointing at a particular region to say, hey, maybe they are testing what's inside the pipeline. This is undersea cable. So you can't mention these guys in the first place now. This is cable.
I take objection that implied. Enjoy your mentioning.
Come in, Joe, let's hear you. How did you feel? How did it come across to you? Did you encounter that in Abuja, the outage?
It's everywhere. The outage are everywhere, affected everything, It's just like B has captured it. It's just, surreal. You just find out that you can't navigate certain services online, But he's spoken on everything that needs to be said. They're addressing it quickly because it's actually revenue loss. Every second that they are not operating, the providers are losing money. So it is in their own best interest also to ensure that everything is up and running as quickly as possible. But I hope that we hear more details. It will be beneficial for us who are receivers of these services to also know, maybe just to fulfill our curiosity, what actually happened. Even in Nigeria and in South Africa, the providers are not really saying what happened. So it leaves a lot of questions. What actually happened there? Given where that these things are really deep under the bottom of the water, so it's surprising.
So, Abby, I'd like you to help us sum up this story because it is the paper in front of you. So let's look at it. At a point, we lived our life before the internet. Why is it every time it just looks like we've never lived a life without the internet before? How can we prepare ourselves? Well, it's looking indispensable at this moment, and we feel helpless.
First of all, the cable is one of the world's longest cables. It's actually 15,000 kilometers. And it suggests to me the magnitude of the project that went into laying that cable is something else. But you're right. Just today, I watched a video online, interestingly online, where they showed children, and the title of the video was Life Before the Internet. Children were doing a game like hopscotch, roughing it, jumping across each other. And I realized that at one time, all the girls in my neighborhood used to play 10-10. All the boys used to, run around and go into the grass and get grass cuts and come back crying. But children of these days are perennially indoors. They are often playing interestingly designed and developed video games. And it's maybe only in their school compound that they may have a bit of physical activity. There are some implications down the line. There was a life before the internet. And I think it's very important for parents to encourage is a nice word, force is a better word, their children to get away from screens and actually engage with the world out there. I think it has good social impact. It has, of course, good health implications. And let us understand that there is a world, yes, enhanced by technology, but independent of technology as well. If you have not got a bee to sting you before, maybe you're on a Jebota. People like Joseph are Jebotas like that.
All right, you'd have to reestablish your connection, AB, your network. I think you see now they're stinging your network at this moment. But let's go over to Joseph. Joseph, there's this.
Still laughing for that.
All right, the Daily Trust is what you're helping us to have and interestingly, you are the person in the nation's capital, Abuja, and this is your budget. So you would help us do a thorough scrutiny and don't come back saying there's anything missing somewhere in it. So let's go with the headline the Daily Trust runs with. 1.1 trillion naira FCT 2024 appropriation bill scales second reading on the floor of the Senate. Take us through what's the nature of this budget and how much is in it.
It's a very critical budget because ever since the Federal Capital Territory was conceived and designed, the focus has been to bring it to be one of the best cities in Africa, if not one of the best in the world. So a lot of planning has gone into it. A lot of infrastructure has been put in there. And more is supposed to become, if they are to keep with the master plan, for example, there are a whole lot of road projects that need to be done in FCT. Some of them, they were done, the critical parts were done, then some parts were not completed. So there's a lot of completion that needs to be done. If you take a road that people call Airport Road Extension, it's called Kado Galadima. It actually runs in front of EFCC all the way down and connects to the airport. It's a narrow road, but it takes a whole lot of traffic. So and that road also leads to a railway station. Traffic there is always so heavy, and it's a road that ideally should be really expanded and giving more lanes for it to operate. But right now, it's still just 2 lanes, and it takes a lot. So there are many projects that are hanging that they will need, and 726 billion is already voted for capital projects. Mr. We used to say his nickname is Mr. Project. So perhaps he wants to really see how he can bring the infrastructure of the city to a level that creates a lot of comfort for citizens. The appropriation didn't go into other details as a breakdown of what they need to be done, but I think security is one area that needs to be given some attention, given the challenges that's happening. Now, what is happening in the Federal Capital Territory is that there have been over-concentration of infrastructure provision in the what they call AMAC, the Abuja municipal area. The council areas actually are deficient in most of these infrastructural services. If you go there, roads are not well maintained. Yeah, the council areas are meant to do, but I think that attention has to be paid to some major projects, or particularly roads that can open up into those areas and make for people to be able to come into the city to do business and go back. So create a suburban kind of culture where people will be able to go and live there and be able to come into the city that's already getting heavily congested, and cost of housing is very, very high in the city area, in the city center. So that's what I think that this budget will be able to address. Voting such amount of money, 1.1 trillion, is equivalent to what a state would do. Well, you know, for FCT, the minister sits as his governor, more or less. And because it's a national state federal capital, the Senate and the National Assembly act as the lawmaking organ for the capital territory.
Okay, so it's heavily, but when we look at 1.1 trillion, you would also say, how much does the FCT really generate to be able to go for this ambitious kind of budget?
Oh, yeah, if FCT generated, of course, what the minister did when he came in is to begin to see where he's going to arouse more funds for the capital. There are more taxes where now they are working to collecting more taxes. Now you can't just park on the streets of Abuja. That is what they call park and pay. If you go to shop somewhere, there are people who are there hounding you, you have to pay for parking in that space. So a whole lot of revenue generating activities. Of course, you know, the controversial CFO and demand for payment of certain leases and so on that the minister came up with. So these are all aspects of revenue generation, internal revenue generation in the city. So the FCT actually does, and of course, people don't know that there is actually an industrial area in FCT, and that towards the railway station, Idu, and so on. All of that area, there are a whole lot of manufacturing going on quietly in that place. So yeah, a lot is going on there.
Maybe we'd like you to get your architect lens, because this is budget and definitely we see it's capital intensive. Give us a little insight before we get into the next paper.
Very quickly, one of the good things is that Abuja is one of the rare planned capitals in the world that is adjudged a success. And you can even go on YouTube and find out about that. Many foreigners come to Abuja, especially Africans, and are awed by the magnitude and magnificence of Abuja. I know in Nigeria it's not popular to really, highlight that, but Abuja, if well executed, is an example of what a good capital city can be. But like Joseph said, you need to connect a lot of the outlying areas properly. So if they do that, and that is, I think, a major key thing that Nyesom Wike is known for, roads and like infrastructure, you'll find that Abuja will become more efficient, and they have a train system that, if it's properly addressed, can actually help with moving people in and out. So let's see how they'll execute at the end of the day. It's one thing to announce it, it's nothing to execute it.
Now, digging into the Punch newspaper with the headline, School Attacks. Bandits demand 1 billion naira for the release of 287 pupils. Issue March 27 deadline, or else. That's where we are. Mark that alongside the president's statement. There will be no negotiation with these bandits. Where do we go from here?
Yes, yesterday the presidency announced that not a single dime, we dollarized the ransom payments instead of not a single kobo we paid for ransom. 1 week ago today at 8:30 a.m., children were kidnapped. Broad daylight, more children than can fit into a jumbo jet and teachers were taken. It's inconceivable to me that 1 week later, in a state that has a concentration of, federal defense, NDA, and co, it's inconceivable to me that they have not been found. I certainly do not expect security forces to give us a blow-by-blow account of what they're doing. That would be compromising security, no. But I would hope, as a citizen, that at this moment, the people, their location has been identified, they are surrounded, and that the various perpetrators are still in the crosshairs of army snipers. Because this threat, a threat to even one of these 287, as far as I'm concerned, is a terrorist threat, and there can be no quarter given. I will say this, and I'm not a judicial anybody, they should be taken out without prejudice. How do you go and terrorize children? Remember, primary school children, some of them cannot even dress themselves. They were there at assembly. You took those away. You are taking young girls who are maybe just starting their motorcycles, who knows, they're in where they don't know, the trauma to them. And of course, they're teachers, because teachers love their students. You don't teach unless you really love that group of people. So they are like the fathers and mothers to these children. All of these people are now, then think of the trauma of the parents who feel abandoned. Again, I do not expect security forces to give us a blow by blow. I think I'm clear about that. But it does look as if right now, almost nothing is happening. The nerve of the people to threaten that they want a 1 billion naira, 1 billion, how much is it? 1 billion, 1 trillion?
1 billion.
No, it was 1 billion naira.
1 billion naira.
40 trillion before.
There was 40. Is it the same people? Because we have different groups of people who are asking. Okay, they were 40 trillion. So by themselves, their borrowed cents have come down to 1 billion. Well, you could say also on a lighter note, that's just 2 senators' constituents allowance. So 2 senators can afford it. But let me come back to being very serious. This is an affront on the nation. This must be met with absolutely no quarter. At the same time, and that's the delicate balance, we must avoid collateral damage. None of those students or teachers had a thing to do with the evil intentions of these terrorists. Treat these terrorists and anybody who has the notion of that being an acceptable thing like the terrorists that they are. If you are threatening to take the lives of Nigerians, you have lost your right to live. That is my conclusion. There is no circumstance or condition under which a single one of these people should be given quarter, should be given amnesty, should be given any form of consideration. They deserve death. That is my conclusion. I don't care what the law, I don't want to hear. You threaten a Nigerian, you die. That is, for me, the bottom line. How we get about it, okay, maybe you can discuss charging them to court and all that. But how do you take 297 Nigerian people who are going to improve themselves in education and then telling me now you want 1 billion naira? People who are working don't want 1 billion. People who are carrying load in the market don't want 1 billion. People who are going to office don't want 1 billion. It is inconceivable. It's unacceptable.
So, Joseph, I know you would have a little to say about this. For the audacity to even ask for, let's say, 1 billion naira from 40 trillion naira, which financial institution, how will that money be conveyed? That's what it's even crossing my mind right now. How do they intend to get this money through a system?
In fact, it's obvious that most of those who are doing all these things, carrying out these things are not stable. Most of them are on influence or under the influence of drugs. They're doing these things. They're not with their normal minds. And so you don't expect that they will be able to be coherent in what they are in their thought processes. And that's the danger in it, because for even the victims, they are known to take lives without thinking. They are not functioning normal people, because any normal human being will not think along this line we've heard, asking for 40 trillion. And when people ask, how much is even the budget of this country that you're asking for 40 trillion? Maybe they've heard all of those sound bites and they are now reducing it to 1 billion, which they think actually the target is actually at government, because why? State governments have been paying. That's the truth. Governments have been paying secretly to kidnappers and terrorist groups across the country. And that's why somebody like Gumi will volunteer again, that he wants to be the go-between once again. In the insane society, somebody like that is supposed to be arrested, because
absolutely.
Should be seriously interrogated as to his relationship with these kind of groups, So apart from the audacity to do this, I believe some work is going on, and they may not tell us, because one of the boys that escaped from the group told the story of the plane hovering over them while they were being taken away into the forest. So maybe some logistical activities being done by the military and security. Well, then yesterday I heard the minister saying that certain countries have volunteered to support Nigeria in getting to help these victims rescue. So let's believe that the government, for the president to have come out to make those categorical statements, he's also going to match those words by action quietly. So let's really pray that something will eventually come out. And Nigeria has to be able, like Ibi said, make a statement this time. Whatever it takes, even if you may have to crawl on your knees to beg other countries to intervene and be able to deal with this situation. We've had American forces come into this country and rescue their citizens. So they've got the expertise, they've got what it takes. Let's leverage that, for example, and be able to see how we can save the lives of these children and the teachers.
Let's go over to the Vanguard newspaper, and that's for your attention, Joseph. There's a saying that reps ask NAFDAC to lift the ban on production, sale of sachet alcoholic drinks. I thought we've moved past the ship has sailed already, left the port. But are we back there again? Take us through this story.
I think it makes sense. What they are saying is that banning the production of these sachet drinks is not economically advisable at this time. But NAFDAC must have taken the step based on concerns being raised over children, underage children, having access to sachet drinks. Because they are very easy. They are you can pocket. I remember when I was a teenager, there was this whiskey that was put in a sachet like that, which we were able to buy that. I was not quite 18 when I drank some of those things.
Even the priest was once a schoolboy.
Yeah. So is the accessibility, the ready accessibility of salt drinks that made NAFDAC say that they should ban the production. But the question is that really the reason? People could just go underground, it could become produced and be sold secretly and so on, and used at parties and so on. So I think that looking at the arguments, or if they are not under the influence of some lobbyists on behalf of the producers, that this is coming strictly from the observation that look, the measure is like well, I would say you're addressing just the symptom. So you're not addressing the symptom, you're just looking at the action and hitting at it, but you're not addressing the symptom. So the advice for enlightenment, publicity, and a whole lot of things, like just like they compared what what's it called? The drug agency is doing, and to what Yeah, what NAFDAC should be doing should be equivalent to what NDLE is doing in mobilizing people and then enforcement. But I don't know whether NAFDAC has got that capacity to be able to monitor and enforce that method that they are advising. So I think there has to be some level of stakeholder engagement on the part of the producer. This producer should take responsibility as well, and then also meet with the lawmakers and then the NAFDAC on how to handle this, because the economic implications are serious and they cannot be played.
The messages are waiting already, lots of them. So let's quickly reach out before we get back to AB. Now, JP's message here says, not paying ransom is a bold statement. The action of the president must now match the statement by busting the bandits. How don't we by now have the CCTV footage across the schools that's seen prone? We are reacting. We should be proactive. Security must increase. Enough is enough. JP's thoughts. Cisco Delgado has got us a message here which says President Tinubu should please maintain his words and not to negotiate with these ill-gotten bandits. Enough is enough. Cisco's words are what we're looking at this morning. And then he also sent in one saying, the truth is that the undersea fiber optic cable are meant for redundancy backup in the case of failure in microwave connectivity. But it's very unfortunate that we Nigerians and Africans always move away completely from the traditional way of telecommunication infrastructure, which is supposed to be a backup despite their slow speed. And that's what Cisco had to say that on the outage we suffered yesterday on internet. Francis from Ojo says, well, he says, let's just say the government wants to pay the ransom on the abducted kids. What process and means would they collect the money? If it were bank and phone call, why are they not tracking the abductors? This country, it goes on, we need to be more proactive. And then comes Oluwaseyi's thoughts here. It says, sadly, except for people who live in the rural areas and those kids who are less privileged, we are long transitioned from the rustic and happier lifestyle since the coming of internet and smartphones. Many private schools in Nigeria don't even have spaces for physical activities, and many children are being raised on smartphones and internet, and everything is now is all about school, grades, and getting into higher institution at every very younger ages now. Our lives now revolve around the internet. At every hangout between friends and families, in gatherings, etc., majority are on their phones, headbands, even while we dine at home. Everybody, we're at the dining table, but our heads are bent looking at our phones. Anyway, let's move on. Isai's message is what I'm looking at. Okay, says, good morning, why is Gumi still free? What kind of country is this? Ajayi Olonindowa's message is what we're looking at. While government should maintain its stand of no ransom to kidnappers, it should at the same time use all the resources at its disposal to rout all these bandits and ensure safe rescue of the victims. It's high time this monster of kidnappers confronted headlong. Ajayi Olonindowa from Magodo Jari Sherry as a message. Then Dan Ukudwa, the government should deal decisively with the terrorists terrorizing innocent Nigerians. The time has come for the government to assert its sovereignty over non-state actors. Dan Okuda's thoughts. Orov, I'm looking at your message and it says, it just shows you that these people kidnapping children are just a bunch of idiots. That's what he had to say. What is the country's budget? Why is Gumi not being behind bars by now? See, they're reducing from 40 trillion naira to what it is right now. This is war. Anyone caught should be taken out, headshot or whatever. That's just so that a message is sent across. Then Joseph Menye's message is not preposterous. Isn't it preposterous? Can this so-called terrorist be demanding 1 billion naira as ransom when UAE released a terrorist list to Nigerian government and kept it in a cooler? That's the list isn't authentic enough to go after. Also, and it goes on and on. I see messages. Let's get two more in now. Kaduna pupil adoption saga is just a shame and shows how weak the government is. And we want foreign investors to come and invest. What happened to using technology to track these terrorists? What happened to intelligence? we are at the mercy of God. Ibrahim Zachary. Then Ibuku's message is here also from Ketu. So senators cannot advise against ban on importation of rice and other essential foods. The president doesn't want to pay ransom, but what security measures are put in place while they maintain the same stance if a son is kidnapped? Would that be the same thing? The ransom demanded shows the level of intelligence of the bandits, Ibukun from Ketu. But I see eBay from Abuja joining us this morning. Thank you so much. I see Larry's message. Damilola, we also see your message. Thank you, everyone. And to Joseph Obari, thank you so much for your time this morning.
A pleasure. Always nice to be
with you.
Yeah.
And thank you to AB Bozimo. Agree, disagree, plug in for that.
Listen, thank you for Dan Okudua, who called these people what they are, terrorists. There's no such thing as a bandit who takes Nigerian people and keeps them for ransom. They are terrorists that should be treated like that. Agree, disagree, hit me up at AB Bozimo on all social media platforms. Have a wonderful weekend ahead, guys.
And that's a wrap on Freshly Pressed on Smooth 98.1 FM.
All right.